Mills. I serve on the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. We're here tonight to speak about the unspeakable. We're here as a community to no longer sit by and watch our brothers, our fathers, our sisters, our mothers, our children, our friends silently suffer alone. Last year was our first Suicide Awareness and Prevention Summit, and tonight we're back again to talk about the pain and suffering associated with suicide. But we're not going to stop there. Tonight we're looking at the ripple effects of suicide from a mother, Krista Wagner, who has lived the nightmare. We will hear stories of hope. We will see ways we as a community are trying to be the change by eliminating behaviors and offering encouragement to those in need. We've had 11 suicides in our county thus far this year, 12 overdose deaths, and 4 car accidents due to drugs with alcohol or deaths due to drugs or alcohol. We can be a difference maker with education that can lead to prevention. I want to thank all the elected officials that might be here with us tonight, judicial, people in medical fields, school personnel, and especially the families that have been struggling with mental illness issues. Our county is wanting to change, to be there for you, and all of us together can work to make Forsyth County a community that truly cares and does something to turn around this epidemic. First, we have with us tonight Walker Tisdale with the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. Walker's going to be bringing a presentation with data to show where we are as a state and what's happening within the state. And we're going to roll straight in from one speaker to another because this is not about any one person. This is about what's happening. You know, it's not a political issue. It's not it doesn't affect a certain socioeconomic class. It doesn't affect any one group of people. You know, the average age, I noticed, I got those numbers from the coroner's office, and the average age of the suicide was 49.4 years. So it's not just a young people thing, you know, it's something though that we can all come together and help each other. And I did want to recognize before Walker can come on up, but if you're part of our mental health council, if you would stand, everybody that's been coming to our mental health meetings, we started this last year, and we have, as you can see across the room, and these meetings are open to anybody. They don't know I hadn't sent out the notice we're going to try to have a meeting September 24th at 8:30, and Avita's going to be presenting, but they're open to anybody. We have people in there that come that are in all different walks of life, in all different fields, and they truly are a community that cares and that are wanting to look for ways and share ideas about making a difference in the community. So I want to thank you all for being here tonight, and this message I'm going to stop with tonight, and we're not going to end with this tonight. We're going to keep on keeping on until we find a way to help make our community stronger. Thank you for being here.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, so I am Walker Tisdale III, Florestine's oldest child, and I come to you from the state of Georgia, Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. And I'm going to share some data with you and some information about what's going on in the state of Georgia. I also want us to really think about the boots on the ground, if you will, regarding suicide prevention and embracing the stigma around it. So before I start, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge those who just stood up, because we cannot do this work alone in downtown Atlanta, right? So can I just join me in a round of applause for those folks who are participating? If you have given a workshop, if you have facilitated a session, if you have talked to someone, if you have given someone a GCAL, Georgia Crisis Access Line number, if you have done anything to help someone to get to care, you deserve to be recognized, because this is not something that one person, one organization, or even one state can do by itself. So with that, are we ready? Okay, all right. I like verbal affirmation. I'm a Pisces. So I just, tell me if I do this right. All right. So as you know, this is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. This is World Suicide Prevention Day. Who dies by suicide in the state of Georgia? So when you think about the state of Georgia, these are 2016, the current data that we have for the state, that you have 1,400 Georgians die by suicide, an increase of over 100 for 2015. But I want us to keep this in context. When you think about national average of deaths by suicide, the South as well as Georgia are right along the lines of the national average, about 13 deaths per day when it comes to, per 100,000. So when you think about 13 deaths per 100,000, we are right along the national average. Now there are some things that also are predictors, if you will, or are factors that kind of contribute to when folks consider suicide. We are a very rural state as well, 159 counties. Just by a show of hand, where do you think that suicide deaths happen? More in the urban areas? Okay? More in the rural areas? All of you would be correct. All of you would be correct. So let's break this down a little bit. So in 2015, the people who died in suicide, when we break it down by gender, most are male. There's a couple of reasons for that, right? So men or males are more likely to use most lethal means to die by suicide, and females are more likely to make more attempts. So the three things to keep in mind about suicide attempters is that the more you do something, the better you get at it, right? And so we have to intervene more quickly at younger ages, from high schools into middle schools even. What ages die by suicide? In 2016, the people who died by suicide ranged from under 10 to over 85. And this is that older age range when I talk about the rural areas, and older males in particular have a lot of predictors that contribute to death by suicide. Unemployment is one. Relationship issues or lack of relationships or breaking up from a relationship is another. Increase in substance use. Not just substance use, but an increase in substance use. And oftentimes an undiagnosed mental health diagnosis. Okay? And I'm going to skip to the last bullet. In the 80 to 84 age group, the oldest that we have data for, the rate peaks, but the number of deaths is not as high. So there is important that even our older citizens, our older Georgians, are also at risk. So it's not just a teenage thing, it's not just a young person thing, it's not even just a retiree issue, right? It's around the lifespan, okay? What percentage of people die by what means? I said the most lethal, firearms. Any surprises there? Okay? I would be remiss because I come from prevention world, and so in prevention world, when we talk about we are a state and a nation that prides itself on firearm and gun ownership, but it's also important to think about safety. And so if you or someone that you know may be dealing with a issue around emotional instability or a mental health issue, then maybe it may be important to have a conversation about safety locks or keeping firearms out of the way, or maybe even just holding them for someone, right? Hey, I know you're going through a rough time, you got a lot of stuff going on. What do you say if I take a couple of these rifles and just hold them at my house? We have to start having the conversations about sensitive topics. Okay, I see a lot of head nods. Suffocating, hanging, and poisoning, and other means are 5%. Those other means, that's a combination that could be jumping off of a freeway overpass. It could be what they call suicide by police officers or law enforcement. So it could be another thing, a lot of other things under that. But this is kind of our breakdown for the state of Georgia. So let's talk a little bit closer in terms of by age group. This is both the number of deaths and the age-adjusted rate. And so age-adjusted is just on average, okay? So for suicide deaths for 2016 in Georgia, I want to show you, if I can, I don't have a pointer. Do I have one? Oh, I do. Oh. Fancy. Fancy. All right. So you see right here, this peak, 22.64 or 160, and that's what age group? 50 to 54. I'm just curious, why do you think that is one of the largest peaks in terms of suicide deaths? Loudest. Career shift, right? That's another part. What else? I heard someone say it. Divorce. So relationships ending. That's a lot of times with transition. Think about children leaving the home in a traditional two-parent household. Children may go off to college. Spouse may decide they want another partner. There could also be a time where people experience, as you get older, our parents get older. And so as you have a lot of older folks who are also dealing with the care of their parents, and caregiving in and of itself can be a stressor, right? Somebody's laughing. It's a given. And you see also that uptick for that 80 to 84 age range. 80 to 84 age range, and then kind of tapers off. So this kind of, if you look at it, you got a spike in the 20s, you got a spike in the 50s, and then in the oldest category. And we're talking about age adjusted 20.25, 22.64, so 20.25. So these rates, and what I'm here to tell you is that it's not just data for data's sake, but these are the age groups that we need to be more sensitive to and having conversations about. Young people, middle age, and older adults. Okay? Otherwise, everybody. So this is some information that I think that you should know, you might already have, but it's a reinforcement. So suicide is preventable. How can you help? Talk openly about suicide and feelings of depression. How many people are comfortable going to someone you care about and asking them, are you thinking about killing yourself? So look around the room with people whose hands are up. Everybody's hands needs to be up, okay? So this time next year when I'm invited back, right, I want everybody's hands to get, because you have to be willing to maybe be off the page. You have to be willing to take a risk. You have to be willing for someone to be mad at you for asking a question that they may think is ridiculous. Because rather you ask the question and it turns out to be nothing than to never address it and it turns out to be someone's last week or last month on earth. Okay? And then the GCAL access line. This access line here. Do you guys know this number? Do you guys have a show of hands? Okay, so more homework. If you have a cell phone out right now, right, put this number in your cell phone. No, seriously. Put this number into your cell phone. GCAL, the Georgia Crisis Access Line. We are very fortunate in the state of Georgia to have a crisis access line that's on demand, that provides care on demand. Literally, they will have a call triage by licensed clinicians, and if they deem it to be necessary for them, they will come out to where you are and intervene in that situation. If not, they will then coach you in terms of the next steps of where you need to make a referral to. I can't tell you how many people have called our office at 2 Peachtree in Atlanta looking for this number and getting me or getting my voicemail on a Friday. So on Monday when I come in, I get this voicemail of someone who's in crisis on Friday. Right? I don't want anyone to be waiting 2 days for a response for a crisis. This number is so important to have when you need it. If you never need it, good for you. But to need it and not have access to it is a nightmare. Okay? 800-715-4225, GCAL, Georgia Crisis Access Line. You got it?
Yes.
What did I say about that affirmation?
Yes.
All right. Question?
What makes that line or number necessarily better than just a typical 911 or other hotline?
Good question. So one is that this is specific to Georgia. So when you call, they know exactly what services and resources are where you are. The other, if you call it the Lifeline number, have you heard of the Lifeline? A lot of you heard of that? That number actually routes back to this number if you call it at a certain time of day. So after 5 o'clock Monday through Friday. And so, I have 5 minutes left, okay. So, it's just a better number, all right. But also let me say this number, also this crisis exit, I just came from them today, taking a tour of the hotline center. I wish they were on stage right now, but if you can just imagine, they're some of the most caring, thoughtful, the most highly trained individuals that come to this work to give everything. To give everything. And so they take it very personally when that call comes in and they know that someone on the other end is in crisis. So I just want to encourage you to call this, because this is the local number, and it will help you to get to help quicker versus calling the lifeline number, which if you call, then they're going to route you back to this number. That make sense? All right. 4.5 minutes. This is the other thing I want us to have a takeaway point. So if there's anything, this lime green slide is a takeaway. Evidence shows that providing support services, talking about suicide, reducing access to means of self-harm, and following up with loved ones are some of the actions we can all take to help others. So what I want you to take away from that is, who can prevent suicide? Every hand should go up. Every hand should go up. If you did not know, you know today. You know the GCAL access line number, and you know where the highest rates are around the state, and you also know that if someone is dealing with something specifically with such a lethal means, meaning firearms, things that you can do, right? All right. Yes. Now you get it. All right. A couple of risk factors. The risk factors are things that put people more at risk, or make it a likelihood that they will die by suicide. Protective factors. This is what I like to focus on. The things that we can do to create a buffer in the environment to protect people from suicide. And so risk factors, these are some that you probably have all heard before, right? You yelled them out earlier. I want to go to the protective factors. Access to effective clinical care. We know that there's not enough services for people who want them, right? So this is another reason to take advantage of that Georgia Crisis Access Line, because when you call, they come. When you call, they come. Family and community support. There is overwhelming evidence that social connectedness, socialization, is a major protective factor for someone who is dealing with a trauma that could put them at risk for a suicide behavior. So talking, are your young people engaged in activities? Are you engaged in activities? Do you have friends? I mean, not just 10,000 Facebook friends and 2 real friends, right? Self-esteem and sense of purpose. There are cultural and religious beliefs that people have that make suicide not an option, like it is not within their vocabulary. And then the last one, problem-solving skills. And I can include this to say independent living skills or resilience. There is, again, I'm going to go to my research brain in terms of, for all of us, young people, teenagers, young adults, older adults, when we are more resilient and able to deal with more trauma, able to deal with other crises, the bad day at the job, horrible traffic, when you're able to deal with those things, suicide becomes less of an option. And so resilience and problem-solving skills are things that we want to teach and encourage in young people, as well as older adults. It doesn't just stop with them. So how to recognize Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. You already are doing it. These are some opportunities. They're going to drag me up the stage. But the other thing, the last one in this corner, the lower right-hand corner, says what? Put the GCAL number in your phone. Put it in your phone. I cannot say that enough, partly because we pay for it. But I also want you to utilize it because the services are top-notch, and they're free. They're free. All right? I just want to give 2 quick plugs. If you are available, September 24th and 25th, there is a statewide Georgia College University Conference specifically addressing suicide prevention. It'll be held at Callaway Gardens. We also have our statewide, the blue logo, the statewide suicide prevention conference for clinicians, educators, law enforcement will be in Augusta, Georgia on October 25th and 26th. You can also come to our DVHDD website, and also Commissioner Mills has information on it as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I could have the other panel members come join me on the stage. Yeah, go ahead and take a seat. Get comfortable. What I have to share with you is difficult, but if I gently move over the details because it makes me uncomfortable, the killer-suicide continues to win. This killer feeds on our fears, relying on us to avoid the taboo topic. It relishes in our pain, and thus gains more power. It whispers lies to its victims like a soothing lover. Suicide preys on our ignorance in order to continue this epidemic reign. Because it took my son, I am at war with this killer. Logan was a kind and extremely thoughtful person. He was tenacious and his convictions seldom wavered. Sometimes he could be a real pain in the neck. He was like a fish needing constant movement to keep water flowing through his gills. Most people saw the funny, exuberant boy who was passionate about being a leader. They saw the kid who embraced the underdog and sometimes was the underdog. Logan had Tourette's syndrome, OCD, ADHD, and pain leading to multiple sinus surgeries. Life was anything but easy for this kid, yet he kept a smile on his face and relished in life itself. A dark side began to creep in, and at times he would become overwhelmed. Small problems pressed on him like giant waves. Eventually, he hid his pain and stopped talking to me completely about his troubles. He slept a lot. He drove recklessly while watching Netflix. He hid things in his room and on his computer that no 17-year-old should have. Logan called his counselor on Thursday. The first available appointment was the upcoming Monday. He took his life the day after he reached out to his counselor, Friday, August 5th, 2016. We never made it to his appointment. My account of what happened goes like this. Our middle son and I were out getting last-minute supplies for his move away from home. It was his first year of college, and he was moving Sunday the 7th. In retrospect, a mere 2 days after Logan took his life. I was so caught up in worry about the move that I lost sight of what was brewing right under my own roof. Logan sent me a message telling me he was suicidal. I kept texting, and his father called. There was no response. I knew something was wrong the minute I came home. I walked upstairs, heard soft music, and I was met by a locked door. I kept asking him to open the door. I finally got the door open and I saw my son hanging blue and lifeless. When we got him down from the chin-up bar, I remember how cold he was. I went into shock and ran downstairs and began screaming for help. I don't remember all the details. I thought I could wake myself up from the nightmare if I screamed enough. Neighbors raced in and provided CPR. Nothing prepares you for the numerous fire trucks, ambulances, and police cars racing towards your house. If you're a first responder, my family loves and appreciates you. Logan was sped to the hospital where he crashed many times, and we watched helplessly. When stable enough, he was life-flighted to Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. As soon as I arrived, the doctors told me the only reason we saw a heartbeat was because they were performing CPR. We were told to make the call when we were ready. I walked over on wobbly knees, and I asked them to stop. My son was pronounced dead. When I was able to get close to him and caress his face, the blue colors began to come back at the tip of his ear, and I knew he was gone forever. With that, I'd like to introduce a group of people all affected by one suicide. It's called the ripple effect. These wonderful people have volunteered their time tonight in hopes that our story can help you with your story. So first I want to start with you, Lindsay. You were Logan's school mom.
I was.
Yeah.
Hello? Hello. I coach cheerleading, so I normally don't need one of these.
So can you tell us a little bit about your relationship with Logan?
I am currently the graduation coach at Denmark High School, but was previously the graduation coach at West Forsyth. And the role of a graduation coach, I would wear many, many hats, but for the most part, I would work with kids that were at risk in some capacity, and that's how Logan was introduced to me. It was the beginning of his 9th grade year. He came in and he was a mess. He was a mess, and he told me a number of what you've already heard, that he had Tourette's and that during times of stress and anxiety that his tics just got infinitely worse. He heard kids whispering about him in the classrooms. His academics were suffering as a result because he was trying so hard to contain his tics that he was just exhausted. So in just those minutes getting to know him, I knew that he needed a place where he could come and feel safe and not feel judged. So I wanted to make sure that he knew that he would always be welcome in my office. If it's just to take a break, that I don't have to talk to him, that I'm willing to talk him through coping strategies, whatever he needs, that my office would always be open for him. And boy, did he use it. He did. So at the beginning of the year, he struggled with what we were talking about, being resilient and understanding, what is a personal trigger for him. So over the course of the year, he grew a lot. I communicated with Mom a lot, and he was in seeing a counselor, and we were making progress. And again, the start of his sophomore year, between the maturity and him improving on those soft skills, I really saw a huge improvement. And then at the beginning of his junior year, I felt like he was a different kid. He was a leader, and he was trying to mentor other students, and I was blessed to have been able to work with him for those 3 years.
So in the school right now, you went from West, now you're at Denmark. Do you see that there's more acceptance in talking about this than there was in previous years?
I do, mostly because of the numbers. Anytime that it's a student, it doesn't matter if you know them or not, it's something that is very difficult to wrap your head around. As an adult in the building, I feel like it caused everybody to rethink their connections with kids and what our true job is as an educator. Like, it's so much more than just teaching kids. And I think that when adults start to feel that way, adults in the building, and it doesn't just have to be teachers, it can be secretaries, it can be the school nurse, anybody that works in the building. I think that they start forcing themselves to be okay with having that conversation, as hard as it is. Nobody wants to look at a student and say, are you thinking about harming yourself? Like, it's unthinkable. And I feel like now more and more teachers and staff members, after having been educated, are more comfortable asking that awful question.
Thanks, Lindsay. Gary, what did you think when you heard that it was Logan who took his life?
I was shocked. I really was. I had just seen Logan, I think we discussed 10 days.
This is his doctor, and an ER doctor. Sorry, I didn't introduce folks. I apologize.
And when I heard that, I didn't believe it. I thought there must be somebody else. When Logan had left my office the last time I'd seen him, we had talked about he was going to help me make T-shirts to shoot at my T-shirt cannon at West Forsyth football game. He was smiling. He was upbeat. I'm like, there's no way this is the guy that committed suicide. There's no way. And that just reinforces, what they may be keeping inside, and that they've got to be able to open it up. And I stress what Mr. Tisdale said, parents, talk to your kids. I went home and I talked to my kids. And, my kids aren't going to commit suicide. That's not going to happen. Talk to them. That's what I did.
Gary, if we're in distress, if we're having troubles ourselves, how do we broach the topic with our family physician? Because I know that I've actually reached out to you when I've had troubles.
There should be no hesitation to talk to a physician. Any doctor that you can approach is a bad sign. I mean, you should be able to talk to your physician about anything. And I promise you, if you think it's a question we haven't seen before, you're wrong. We see all kinds of questions about all kinds of things, all kinds of topics. So don't hesitate to come talk to us, to open up. Because like I said, there was a side of Logan I obviously didn't know about, didn't see. I saw this a kid with a great future ahead of him, and he fooled me. I didn't expect that. And in emergency medicine, we're trained on how to spot traits, the things Mr. Tisdale talked about, what to look for in somebody that might commit suicide, on people you know nothing about. And I thought I knew Logan. So you've got to look past what you think and make sure and ask the questions and talk to teachers.
Thank you, Gary. All right, Tom, you're up. This is my therapist. He didn't know Logan personally, but he's helping me through my struggle. So it is a part of the ripple effect. I don't want to just address things for kids. This is something that we all need help with. And I think one of the most, I'm just going to jump in here, Tom, and say I would love for you to just start myth busting for us, because I think that's one of the biggest things that keeps us from talking.
I'm happy to. Is that on? Can you hear me? Good. First, I'll jump in, I promise, with the myth busting. But did you feel what it felt like when you heard Krista telling the story? Did it wipe you out? Did it hit you deeply inside? I hope it did. And to be a therapist sitting with a family who has gone through that, the room is not big enough for that pain. And it's really difficult. I also sit with a lot of kids, and been doing this 30 years now. So the myths, hopefully you've heard some of these, or at least either heard them or know they're not true. One of the biggest ones is that if you ask somebody about suicide, or are you thinking about ending your life, what are you thinking about, that we're going to push them over the edge. That somehow that message is going to somehow harm them. And I want to say that is a myth. You cannot push somebody over the edge. Now, we might have a teenager who says, "Oh, Mom," or "Oh, Dad." But that's teenagers. We still should ask, even if they blow back at us in terms of that kind of stuff. One of the first things I ask when a teen sits in my office and we're thinking about suicide, and you may think this is crass, but the first thing I ask them is, "Why aren't you dead?" Because I want to know what's keeping them alive. What is the one thing or many things that are? People who talk about it never will commit suicide. That is another myth. That is not true. In fact, please listen to people. Listen to the subtle things. Listen to the music they're listening to. Find any way you can to listen to your children, because they'll often be talking about it, not directly, but in indirect ways. Suicide happens without any warning. That is a myth. Normally, not always 100% of the time, but normally there is a lot of signals. I mean, I sit with a lot of families and we talk about, on hindsight, what do you know? And there are a lot of things that are known. And had we paid attention, had we listened to it differently, he might have acted on that. If a person tries it, they're never going to try it again. That is a myth. In fact, I want you to pay attention, particularly to those kind of kids, and track them, because what is the cause of them wanting to end their lives? And that's another thing, is suicide is not mental illness. I know that sounds crazy, but it is about, there may be depression, and that may be in it, but it's not always there. Classic depression, clinical depression. It can happen to kids who do not have any kind of mental illness diagnosis or all. And that's that all young people who commit suicide are depressed, and that is a myth. Someone who wants to end their lives, you're not going to be able to stop it, is a myth. And there are a lot of people who believe they're just going to. If they want to kill themselves, they're going to kill themselves. A myth. Everything that you're going to hear today is all about prevention and moving in that kind of direction. I could go on.
Please, because we have some time.
Okay.
Please, if you want.
I don't want to hog.
No, this is good stuff.
Suicide is hereditary or somehow biogenetic. It's a myth. It's really not true. Particularly in my 30 years of this, I do not see that one-to-one correlation. I pay attention to it. If a parent or a family member has completed, or if any of those kind of things, but it's not always necessary in that. I think there's also, it often happens with one of the kind of warning signals is that they start giving things away. And they may, in fact, give a letter, a sealed letter to somebody and say, would you hold that for me? And I want to say that to the kids, please don't keep that secret. That needs to be brought to some kind of attention of somebody, physicians, teachers, whoever, so that they can assess that, what's going on. The classic symptoms is that they're depressed, they're giving away things, they're either sleeping too much or not enough, they're eating too much or not enough, they're withdrawing, they're staying in the room all the time, they're crying, they have some kind of expression of not having worth. My being here is just not, I don't need to be here. I'm not bringing anything to this world. In fact, I'm more problems than I'm worth, is one of the things that I often hear. So sensitivity, listening, and let me say one more thing.
Please.
And this may be a little bit controversial. The person I struggle with, or the persons I struggle with most in sitting with kids around suicide, is the parents. I have had more than one kid who I was very, very worried about, and the parents fire me. And they fire me because they don't want their kid labeled. They fire me because they're scared I'm going to drug them and they're going to be whatever else. For whatever reason, I'm not judging them, but they're making a horrible mistake. The therapist, I don't know who that was that couldn't have been there. I am sure they kicked themselves for not picking up on that call and saying to Logan, hey, how about right now? How about meeting me right now? How about coming on over to the office? The therapists that are here, we really do care. And we really do want your child alive, but we need your help, parents.
Thank you, Tom. So I want to introduce you to the woman sitting next to me. This is Jennifer Barker, and she is a supermom. She carried the powers to actually make a difference and go through non-conventional channels to save her daughter's life. So Jennifer, I'd like to see if you tell us about that.
So everything, I wish we had known you back then. My daughter, Leah, has always been an amazing kid. Always. I can't call her a kid because she's officially an adult, but let's just say kid for now. Straight A student, into activities, would take the shirt off her back to save anyone. The last person you would think would be down, depressed, sad, anxious, pick a label, right? And things were brewing, I think, in middle school. And come high school's tough, especially now. It is, I still work with kids every day. And I know the statistics, and I now realize that I should be spending a lot more time with others. But, the teens are close to my heart, and it seems to be, rising a little bit. So what we had to do with Leah, it was, in short, it was 6 inpatient treatment facilities. Northside Forsyth, love Northside Forsyth. They always got her in somewhere. But they put the Band-Aid on the problem. It's like having it's like having a broken leg, okay? And somebody just wants to put a Band-Aid on this because that'll just make it better. And that's the best analogy I can give you, because in these short-term treatment facilities, while it does help some, it's giving them all the information that they need to have. It's fantastic. But it's not giving them the information on how to utilize it for themselves, and how to put it to use, and how to, how to be the, take that information and apply it to their situations. My Leah, she decided to turn into a walking psychiatry book, so every time she ended up at a short-term facility, she could con her way out like that. And she can still recite just about everything you'd want to know about facts, figures, brilliant. At the time, I was a little ticked off that she was that smart, but it's true. So what we ended up having to do, in short, is every suicide attempt, she had a therapist, she had a psychiatrist, her primary care physician knew. And we were seeing the signs after not seeing a sign. We had the opportunity, thank God, or thank Logan.
Well, Jennifer, that brings up a point. So when we met you, talk to us about that time, because that's when you really started to take measures into your own hands.
Yeah. So, 5 short-term facilities, and got into Ridgeview, and I'm going to use their name because I stand behind them 100%. They sent her to Village Behavioral Health, which it's in Knoxville. It's a longer-term facility, 90 to 120 days. 28 days in, insurance company said, she should be good. We're not going to pay anymore. So let's send her back home, and she can do some outpatient therapy. I wasn't worried about her during the day as much because there were people surrounding her. It's when she came home. It's when I went to bed at night. Every single night wondering, is she going to be awake? Is she going to be able to wake up when I wake up the next morning? It was nights on the floor, watching her sleep. I was scared every day, every night. So they released her from this program that I was so hopeful. She was hopeful. And what put her there, and this is what you guys need to really soak in if you have kids, if you don't have kids. I was met by a locked door, and I busted through that door to find my Leah on the ground, half conscious, 86 cuts up one arm, 96 cuts up the other, half conscious, lying in a pool of her own blood. I can't tell you what brought me up there to check to see. There was nothing out of the ordinary. But that's what I saw. And at that moment, that's when we knew something was going to change. She went to Ridgeview. They sent her to Knoxville for long-term. Insurance canceled her, said she should be fine. We'll put her in a facility.
So what did you do that actually was, you went up above the insurance company? How did you get the money that you needed, since insurance wasn't going to cover it?
No, $400 a day. $400 a day, and I had emailed every single person within Optum Healthcare, commissioners, board of directors, whatever the case, everybody. No, denial, 4 appeals, therapists, everything. And so what we ended up doing, I say we, like it was me and my other personalities, but my husband was helpful. What we ended up doing was, didn't care about the stigma anymore. It didn't matter. My daughter was going to die. And I couldn't take a chance on that happening. We started a GoFundMe page. And that GoFundMe page was one of the hardest things I've ever put together. Because it put everything of her life, every single piece of it, out. For the entire world to see, her friends' family, her friends' friends, all of Forsyth. That GoFundMe ended up touching Germany. And I got a call right after that GoFundMe went up, and it was from Krista and Charles, through channels they found it. And I will never forget it. We were taking the 2 younger kids she was in a short-term facility, because I was just trying to keep her safe. So we'll just keep taking her there until we can figure out an answer. And I remember I got a message to call Krista and Charles. And I called them. And my husband and I met them at their house. They had just lost Logan. Just lost him. I don't know how she opened the door. I really don't. We sat down and they were all about, can we get you coffee? You want some water? And I'm thinking, you just lost your son and we're here. I could go through the extent of what we did after that. But it was Krista and Charles that started it. It was Logan. It was through Logan's death that Leah was able to live. And from that, I could name off 6 other people their age that we were able to save, because we were able to save Leah, who still to this day goes and tries to save others. I still talk to the teens. We still talk to parents. How we were able to do this was through Logan. And every point in Leah's life, they do it together. You know, graduated high school, sent a message to Krista. Logan and Leah they graduated.
I just want to tell everybody, I got a special surprise today out in the parking lot. Didn't think she was going to be able to make it, but Leah is here. And if it's okay with you, we'd love for you to come up and say a little something.
What I'll say about Leah, every day that goes by there's still some days where she struggles. I know that as her mom. There's some days that, that she works through harder and harder. But, all right, Leah, what are you doing now?
I am currently studying psychology at the University of North Georgia. I would like to become one more person that firsthand understands and is able to help others going through what I went through. And I'm living my life for me and Logan.
Yeah, we are so happy to see you. We're so proud of you. We're almost out of time, but I know some people out in the audience that have had trouble getting insurance to help out. And just to hear this story, hopefully that gives us some hope. I want to thank the people on this panel for giving your time, your resources. You have no idea how many lives you may have touched tonight. I want to thank you very much for that, and I think we'll be ready for the next speaker.
What I will say real quick, don't let the insurance company tell you no. And that's one thing I didn't get to say, because it just brought back a lot. The insurance company says no, call me. I'm serious. My number is everywhere, and I'll happily give it out.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Teresa Stan, and I'm the Executive Director and co-founder of the LRJ Foundation. And as you can see, our logo is better than yesterday. Thank you for those who are wearing their shirts out there today. I see some yellow. You guys must be from Denmark, huh? Awesome. Well, our organization is based on mental health, wellness, suicide prevention, bringing positivity into the classroom, into the community, destigmatizing suicide, mental health through our educational programs. So our mission is pretty simple. It's to improve mental wellness, suicide prevention through interactive educational programming in school districts and the communities. So before I tell you a little bit more about our program, I want to show you a little bit from the mouths of our students who've experienced it.
It's a topic that really does need to get discussed in schools, in the communities, in homes. It's not a topic that's easy to discuss, so we need these programs in school for students and after-school programs for parents.
It can prevent so much harm being done, so people who have these problems can be helped.
I think it was good that we got to learn about how to control our tempers and how to deal with things if we're sad. If you do get bullied, you're not just keeping it all in and letting it bother you, so that you can tell an adult or a friend.
I think everyone, not only med school students, should be, informed of this and have be able to come to talks like this that are given to the community, so they can go get informed. They should learn that there's help out there. I think that's a really great program, and I think it should exist everywhere for everyone.
Right, so that's some of our kids that we educate. So I'm going to stay away from the podium. But our program is very active. We are on site, we travel into the school districts and deliver our educational presentations. So my why and what if. So everybody has a story, right? LRJ has a story itself. And sadly, 6.5 years ago, I lost my brother to suicide. I was living here in Georgia and traveling up to the holidays, and it was December 23rd. And he was gone missing for 2 days. And we had, I deboarded the plane in Scranton, Pennsylvania to find out the news that my brother was found and he had taken his life. So in a small town in Pennsylvania, surrounded by love and family and friends, my brother had passed. We had found out afterwards that he was suffering from depression, bipolar, possibly even schizophrenia, and it was undiagnosed and untreated. So my why became when we had realized that this was shocking news to my family and our community. Here's another ripple, which adds on to the Live, Love, Logan story. And here we are, that the Eller Foundation was started because we saw a gap in the community and in the school districts of lack of mental health education. And it's of no fault of our own, of anybody's. This stuff is hard to talk about. Say, how do we talk about this? How do we, make this topic known? People are afraid to talk, but why are we afraid to talk about it? We're here, I'm standing, I'm alive, I'm living, I'm breathing. Those that struggle, every single day with the pain of suicidal thoughts, that's fear. That's something that should be feared, not talking about it. Those that struggle every single day go through the hardships of the pain. So this is easy. So my twin sister is a health and phys ed teacher at a high school, and her educational unit on mental health stated one line and said depression. And that was pretty much it. Then I went on to the next topic of education. So we decided at the LRJ Foundation that that's where we were going to start, was mental health education in the health classes. So we created a program with some amazing licensed health professionals, and we brought the education to the health classes. And then from there, the school was like, oh, I want this for the whole school. So then we started teaching the 9th through 12th graders. And then they said, well, what about our middle school kids? We said, all right, let's do it. So we created a program for our middle schools. And then it trickled down to our elementary. Mental health education for our elementary kids, yeah, that's where it's at right now. We need to start young. So we expanded. We're in over 40 schools in the state of Pennsylvania, and now we're down here in Georgia for the last 3 years. And what is pretty amazing about these presentations is that kids actually open up when we talk about it. They want to talk about it. They raise their hands and they ask the questions. So when they're presenting with the hard stuff, they're ready to give the hard answers. So one day, just in an auditorium just like this, our presenter, Christine, was actually presenting in our Pennsylvania chapter. And the auditorium cleared. There was about 250 kids in that presentation that day, and it was just one left. And we always tell our kids after the presentation, hang around. If you have any private questions, we're here to answer it. Some of them are a little bit hesitant to raise their hand during it, and that's fine. So in this auditorium, it was just Christine and this young woman. And she said, can I talk to you? And Christina said, of course. And she had said, I'm kind of struggling with something. And she said, I actually have a suicide note written at home. And that's at that point where the what if happens. What if Christine wasn't there that day? What if she wasn't able to talk to this young woman? This young girl was standing in front of our presenter, and Christine, at that moment, turned from presenter to counselor. And she was there to assess. She was there to see the need. She was there to see the want. This young woman wanted to commit suicide. She had a note written home that day. What if Christine wasn't there that day? What if we weren't there to educate this young girl and weren't there for her to open up and speak? So luckily we were. And then about 2 months later, we received a letter from this young woman who is living and thriving and doing well today. So that's our why and that's our what if. So these are some of our little cuties in elementary school that we educate. We actually do a yellow out, and this was their Wear Yellow Day last year. We're all about making mental health a priority in our schools. It's going by better than yesterday and being supportive and interactive with our kids. And this year down here in Georgia, we had Denmark High School, Heiser Orthodontics, Spotlight Dental, the local Wood Fire Grill, and Fulton County Schools, counselors and social workers. 400 of Fulton County officials today were wearing our Better Than Yesterday shirts. And this had happened in Denmark today, all because of Principal Heather Gordy and Lindsay Needham, who is here. So thank you. Give Lindsay a big round of applause for making this happen. Heather's here. Ms. Heather Gordy, thank you so much. So these are some of our other schools and fellow businesses that we had. North Springs is in the center, and this is Heiser Orthodontics. We basically tried to yellow out Georgia today, and it was awesome. So how do we do it? We go into the schools and we talk about to our kids what impacts mental health, all these factors that impact issues that can develop stronger mental health and into mental illness. We give them the real stuff. This is images that we show to our middle school and high school. There's clear physiological effects of depression. So you can't just tell somebody to snap out of it. You can't just say to get better. It just doesn't happen that way. It actually shows in our brain, a depressed brain and not a depressed brain. It's actually dim, and there's no life, there's no activity. But when someone is doing healthy and well, you can clearly see that it's light and active. We also talk about suicidal thoughts. It's normal to have the feelings of being sad, anxious, angry, hopeless, but maybe when these feelings start to build up over time, you start to have some negative feelings inside, and that's where suicide ideations come into place. So we talk to our middle school and high schools about that and what that means. So then we also end up with a positivity and some coping skills, because there's always negative coping skills and there's positive. So we make sure that our kids are staying away the negative coping skills, which a lot cope with to numb their pain, to numb their emotions, through substance abuse behavior, self-harm, dysregulation of emotions, where we can teach them how to cope positively with positive coping skills like music, exercise, better ways to take care of their health. Also, the importance of kindness. We say kindness is free, and anybody can give it, anybody can get it. So we try to teach empathy to our kids, because truly it comes back twofold, where it brings happiness to ourselves and increases more positive vibes for everybody all around us. So how this is done is we have demonstration, activities, impactful video clips, and engaging conversations. Our goal is that we say we want to take away that video and breathe in live interaction. So we have different age groups that we discuss. Each presentation has a different level that we speak to our audience on. And then we also have our teacher development and parent universities that go over many of these topics here. These are also live as well and on-site. So some of the questions you guys can find me back at the LRJ booth is better ways to have conversations with our kids. Not that, hey, how was your day? And you get that answer of, it was good, and then that's it. What about, hey, how did you like your lunch today? What's something that you did at school today? Did you learn something new? So all these great questions is ways to open up the conversation. If we have better connection, we have better relationships, we have stronger bonds and more positive, healthy habits. So this is something really cool that I found. Our bodies tend to really fall into like a fight or flight mode, and everybody seems to kind of want to fight right? Everyone's like defensive of themselves. And our bodies, that's just naturally to do that. We want to kind of run from struggles, we want to run from pain. So why don't we just Control, Alt, Delete? That's pretty easy, right? Well, no. Just like our educators teach in schools, how we need to think outside the box. You know, what are some other ways? So at the LRJ Foundation, it's all about mindset, it's about positivity. So why don't we try this? How about we control ourselves? We look for alternative solutions, and we delete situations that give us tension and negative energy. This is more of a positive mindset that we like to bring, just like the whole mindset of better than yesterday. So let's try this instead of just deleting everything. So I would like to ask Joseph if he can join me up on stage here for a second, please. So Joseph is a senior at West Forsyth, and he was part of our program we did last year when we came in to do de-stress before a test. And kind of putting you on the spot here, huh, Joseph?
A little bit.
So this guy is awesome. So talking about the Ripple today, he was part of the Tourette's Awareness Club, which is now called the Condition Awareness Club, and which he is very familiar because he knew Logan. So him being a part of today is pretty awesome. So before Logan, if you'd just like to share something with us and why this club means so much to you, we'd love to hear it, and then we're going to watch the video.
Hello. So essentially we had started this Tourette Syndrome Awareness Club. I was a freshman, Logan was in that mentor position for me and my friend Casey. And depression is so hard to talk about that, as hard as general mental illness is, it was easier for us to talk about the OCD and Tourette syndrome than it was to talk about things like depression, so we kind of ended up avoiding them. So in Logan's passing, we were kind of reflecting, and everyone's always hit with guilt after something like this happens, of how could I have prevented it? And for me, while also realizing it's never any one single person's fault, it was taking that and using it to kind of extend it, so it would also be general condition awareness, where now we've had people essentially from all over the school, and we had a meeting last week and it's over 30 people. You don't need to have a condition. We always say when you're walking in, like, name a condition, but we don't actually. But you basically have these things and you can't find anything good that they do for you in life, but you can actually take them and educate other people on them. So we've had presentations on not necessarily just mental illness, but we've had OCD, schizoaffective, which is kind of a mix of more mild bipolar and schizophrenia, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, all kinds of things. And you see that these do have risk or increased risk for suicidal ideation. So it's kind of a place where everyone's coming together. And we have had people say that it's boosted their confidence so that they're able to come out to their parents and say that they're depressed and that they need to see a psychiatrist. But in general, I guess I was just coming in here and it's so nice to see parents, and I want to commend you all because I have friends that really struggle with mental illness and they don't get to go to any mental health practice because their parents don't believe in mental illness. And everyone here is already making a step forward by just believing in that, and I think we're moving in the right direction, so thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. This is a rock star. So when we had our presentation at West last year, he was a part of it, and I just want to show you this. And I thank you all for being here today. And if any information on the LRJ Foundation, you guys could find me in the back.
It's really important that we have these events sponsored by the LRJ Foundation, just because we have an opportunity to have programs where students can come together for emotional well-being, and then suddenly we have people who we can become allies for each other, and we can develop personal relationships in which we kind of sponsor each other. It all started like my freshman year. We started out a condition awareness club, or actually started out as a Tourette Syndrome Awareness Club. It was me, another girl with Tourette Syndrome, which is a neurological condition in which people have tics, which are unintentional movements or expressions, such as my blinking and my wincing. And we came together trying to increase awareness. We thought we didn't really shed light on the emotional well-being that we kind of should have been for each other. And then that next year, that was 2 years ago. So then that next year, going into my sophomore year, one of the members that had Tourette syndrome, Logan, he took his own life. That was August 5th, 2016. And I mean, from that it kind of just took off. So it went from just Tourette syndrome to all kinds of conditions. And we had people in this club since then, because his legacy has made it so powerful. We've had people share presentations on empowering themselves from topics from Tourette syndrome to cerebral palsy to craniofacial anomalies, schizoaffective disorder, all kinds of things. And it's just an empowering way. And then all of us people that are in this club, with events sponsored by LRJ and other foundations, we have opportunities to just advocate to other people that they can just join in. And it just strengthens the level of mental well-being that we need in society in today's high schools. So I think that's why it's really important.
Give Joseph a round of applause. That was pretty awesome. Up next, we have Katie Newman with the Forsyth County School System. Welcome, Katie.
Good evening. I'm Katie Newman, and I like to call myself a school social worker on assignment, but I am the mental health services coordinator for our school system, Forsyth County Schools. I've been a school social worker helping students and families address barriers and that the family is experiencing for mental health, not just basic needs. But just seeing year after year more boundaries and barriers and stigmas that are affecting our students just really played heavy on my heart. And luckily, with support of our director, Debbie Smith, who's here tonight with Student Support Services, she's allowed me to kind of go upstream a little bit and work on a lot of our interventions and postventions that we have in place for our students. And like a lot of what was shared earlier today, I just want to say thank you for your courage, for all of you for coming up and sharing a very vulnerable moment with a large group of people, and that's very, very difficult to do. So I just appreciate your vulnerability, and I know how much that that really means to the rest of us too in the room. When looking at suicide prevention, we've really wanted to look at a continuum of care, not just prevention, intervention, and postvention, but looking at a multi-tiered approach. And looking at the strategies, not just only with student and teacher relationships, but also in classrooms, school climate, home, and community. And these strategies, as well as our CASEL competencies, are embedded in our student learner profile. That a lot of you who go to our county website will see that on the front page. Mental health and supporting students with mental health is a top priority for our county. And after seeing the Georgia Student Health Survey, which unfortunately is right along the state average, and I'll show that up here. This is last year's data for our county. And these are just percentages of middle and high school students that filled out the survey. We would like for all these to be zero, but unfortunately they are the state average, along the state average. The suicidal ideation, the second question, is a little higher than the state average, so just so you're aware of that information. The reason for suicidal thoughts, the top 3 reasons in the survey, one was demands of schoolwork, which is gone up from last year. Last year, family reasons was what students had answered as the number 1. And then the third was problems with peers and friends. So looking at what does this continuum of care look like and how do we support our local schools, and I'm so grateful for Denmark for embracing the LRJ Foundation and the Better Than Yesterday initiative, because I think that a lot of that kind of initiative that we see in our county is what we need for connection. And we, just because we're so isolated with our commutes to work, with our cell phone devices, that it really does bring our community together. So it was really inspiring to see that. Looking at mental wellness, how are we not only what are we teaching about social emotional learning, but how are we teaching it? So I love this picture of just the 2-eye lens, and we try to tell our teachers and show them and give them skills to look with one eye to challenge them, because we do have a very academic rigorous school system, but also one lens with care, and really teach teachers that you have to build an emotional bank account with students before you can challenge them. And building that sense of like connection with their teacher, the academics will come. So we're definitely try to empower teachers for that. And then the third is community collaboration. How are we collaborating with our community? We have a very affluent community with lots of resources. How are we connecting those resources with people that have barriers, and stigmas, and connection? So those are the 3 things that we have been really focusing on this past year. This is just a look at our CASEL competencies, and this is just a guide that we use for social emotional learning. So certain standards that we want to make sure that students can build that resiliency that you heard others speak about tonight, and those positive coping skills, because we all cope, right? It's either a positive thing or it's a negative thing. And so we want to instill positive coping skills to build that resiliency inward, instead of outsourcing ways to make us feel better with substance use and other things like that. These aren't all of the social emotional learning programs that we have in our county. These are just a few. But we do have certain character education implementation that our school counselors, they're so awesome. If you haven't hugged a school counselor today, you need to go find one tomorrow and hug them, because they have an incredible job of looking after these students with large caseloads, but they also try to empower them and the teachers with information to help build those resiliencies and coping skills. We also have prevention supports, not only at the local school level, but at the county level and community level. We have our own mentoring program that starts out in kindergarten. So if students are identified either through a teacher or counselor, if the student's struggling or having some behavior issues and maybe a loss of a loved one, and just need to have a positive adult in their life, we have a mentor program where a mentor comes in and visits with them 30 minutes a day. And we have mentors now that have been mentoring for like 8 or 9 years. And we know that when a student has a trusted adult, they're less likely to get involved in risk behaviors and less likely to feel isolated. And in isolation and with the stigma and that fear comes, a lot of our students have suicidal ideation from that. Some of our programs, Signs of Suicide, is something that we have in our county in the 7th and 9th grade, and where we talk about it. It's a part of the counseling through the counseling department at the local schools. We also have developing in our health classes a mental health curriculum with more substantial information, and I know NAMI is one of our agencies that's come in and done some guest speaking work with that, as well as Family Haven. They've come into health classes and talk about domestic violence and teen domestic violence and the statistics and information to keep students safe. Because a lot of times when someone has a traumatic event and can't get past it, it stays with them, and that changes their core belief inside. Also, I know that Brian will talk about Whisper in just a minute, but Sources of Strength is a wonderful evidence-based program that we have. And it's not so much a program, but it's an empowerment movement led by students and some key leaders in the school to really change that environment, to talk about positivity and, again, those positive coping skills and giving an opportunity for those peers to speak to each other. We have also substance use preventions through grants. I have a choice campaign. Some of you may have seen those billboards around the county. How many of you have seen I Have a Choice campaign billboards? Okay, good deal. Well, if you keep your eyes open, not that I want you to veer off the road, but if you're at a stoplight, take a look around because we have several around the county, some great messages for parents and students. And we have that through different and various grants. We also look at barriers to families that have issues getting to be supported for mental health services. And these are a list of some of the barriers that we have found over the years have been a struggle for families. And I'll talk a little bit about that, about that in a minute. Mental health services support. We have great partners in our school system, mental health providers, and we have nonprofits that are willing to help come in the schools or to either talk or do a small group education for staff, parents, or students to share about mental wellness as well as services. We do have a local grant, thanks to United Way and Brownsbridge Church, that help address financial barriers. So if a family is underinsured or uninsured and is in crisis, that we're able to offer that support through the grant, and our fiscal agent, United Way, has graciously been able to allow us to partner with them for that process. We also offer additional staff trainings, and I know a lot of you had mentioned earlier is about teachers not knowing or being afraid of having those conversations with students. And we are rolling out more and more information about how to help teachers support their students without that fear and without that stigma. ASSIST is a great evidence-based program. It stands for Applied Suicide Intervention Skills Training. It is a 2-day training, but it does help counselors talk to, not just counselors, but teachers to talk to students about what led you to this point. Not so much of, do you have, they do ask the questions from our protocol, like, if they have a means or if they're seriously considering, but even backing up from there and understanding how they got to this point, because they didn't just wake up and say, I have suicidal thoughts. There were some things that were happening before that, and to help them have more of a connection with that person. We also have mental health first aid that is rolled out for our staff members, and we offer it during pre-paid and post-planning and some DCD days, but that's a program that's really geared more toward teachers and in education about the different types of mental illness and warning signs or even prodromal symptoms that could be happening in their classroom, so they could identify it and make a referral to the counseling officer to the social worker. Also, NAMI, Ending the Silence. That's an hour-and-a-half program, and I know that NAMI's over here, so if you want to speak to them after the presentation, I know they'd be happy to talk to you more about that, but that is something that some of our health teachers have included that in their health classes, and there's a teacher and parent portion of that as well. So those are, again, things that are offered in the community. We do have an annual crisis review team, so a few of our school social workers gather information from our school counselors and say, how can we improve this? How can we constantly be making it better to where we're not just stagnant, we're not just settling on these percentages that we've seen on the screen, that we're constantly trying to make it better to where students feel supported and loved and cared for. And then mental health services surveys. So we ask our students how things are going, and we want them to make sure that how are the counselors in the schools feeling supported. So some of these things are ways that we can help staff members get trained on mental health. Another portion that we talked about, earlier, is taking care of yourself. Like even just as a parent, and kids see that, and we wear the stress on our faces a lot of the time, and making sure that we're going back to that flight attendant model where putting the oxygen mask on your face and taking care of yourself so you can care for others. Because oftentimes, as caregivers, we we do give of ourselves into where we are not filling our own bucket, so we're burned out, not to be able to care for others. Our community outreach, I think that this is it's one of my favorite things to talk about because it's that collaboration with the community, with different professionals. Our Total Wellness Collaborative the vision is to mobilize the community of Forsyth to support the growth and success of all learners to lead a balanced and successful life. And this is kind of our wellness model, or wellness wheel that's up there, that we came up with like 8 different, we looked at what wellness looked like in 8 different of the wellness attributes: relational, social, emotional, occupational, physical, financial, environmental, intellectual, cultural, and in the center of our next slide is the interpersonal connection. So looking at this model, we really wanted to create like I even highlight a wellness attribute in creating a web-based host for local resources, podcasts, and learning videos, and monthly challenges to help motivate our community. And this is an opportunity to look at ourselves in our families and communities, and whether it's a job or raising children, and perhaps taking care of an aging parent, that we need to pay attention to our bodies and minds to help us stay healthy with all the stressors and pressures that we have from our environment. But at the same time, not being too hard on ourselves when we mess up, fail, or miss an opportunity. We know all too well about the feelings of the comparison traps with social media at our fingertips navigating our emotional compass. TWC, our Total Wellness Collaborative, is trying to guide our community of families rather than criticize, but communicating in a supportive, caring, and honest way. And looking at how we can positively change our community, and not just with our students in our school system, but how we can collaborate with a lot of our nonprofits, mental health professionals, law enforcement, our local pediatricians, and our Keeping Forsyth Beautiful, and our local YMCA, and our UGA co-op. So we've taken all these people and just asking them, what can we do to make Forsyth better, and look at wellness and how can we do wellness better. So that is all I have, and I know my time's probably out, but I am so grateful to be here in front of you tonight, and I'd like to ask Brian to come up.
Hello, it's great to see you guys tonight. Thank you so much, Cindy Mills. I don't know who's coming after me, but I just think we need to give a word of applause to Cindy Mills, who's pioneered this Suicide Summit. She's amazing. And Katie Newman, you're amazing. She doesn't just talk about mental health, she lives it out. Just by, you know somebody has great mental health when you collaborate a lot of different people, a lot of organizations very well. That says a lot. Dr. Ferguson said that to me this week, that is a major part of our mental health and our relational needs. So my name is Brian Davidson, and I'm the founder of Whisper. It's a movement that we have birthed here in Forsyth County. And really who I am is just a guy with a broken heart. And I'm not a psychologist, I'm not an expert in these things. I'm just somebody that sees a generation, and I just wanted to do something. So we birthed it, and everything came together. It was grassroots, like any startup, but we were able to do something at Lambert that we saw really affect the climate of the school in a major way. And it was amazing to see that. But a lot of what I do is find these students who are unashamed, because shame is a big part of suicide. And if you can raise up the leaders in a high school and empower them to be completely unashamed, it can really change the climate of a school. And those ones that are unashamed can help create the conversations. And we're about conversations. My goal in 3 years is to see 1 million conversations. Maybe right here in Forsyth County, but conversations and seeing a conversations movement is really the heart of what we're doing. So the chair of my board is a guy named Dr. Ferguson. He's a world-renowned psychologist, so I'm lucky to have him. I'm the guy, trying to instigate and make these things happen, but he's the guy that really knows what he's talking about. He's been doing this for 40 years. People use this stuff all over the world. People all over Atlanta have been influenced by Dr. Ferguson. And what he's known for is relational needs. We have physical needs, we have spiritual needs, we have many needs, we have relational needs. And so we took 5 of his relational needs, partnered with a brand company out of Dallas, Texas, who really got passionate about what we're doing and has done it all pro bono, which is amazing. They do stuff like $200,000 projects for like Samsung. And they said, we need to see a change in this generation, and we're going to get behind and do it. So we rebranded some of Dr. Ferguson's things. And a lot of people ask, what is Whisper? Whisper is just trying to get people to do 3 things. Those relational needs are the how-to, but these 3 things are really what we're trying to get people to do, which is listen, connect, and activate. And activate means activating conversations. And so listen is important to not only listen to your story, but listen to who you're with. Being able to connect with people and be present, and to be able to activate where you can be somebody that makes people better. And so it's encouraging to be one of the last presentations here tonight, because I get to give you hope that we saw students fall in love with Whisper. We saw students fall in love with being vulnerable and being real and pursuing those that are lonely and pursuing those who don't have significance in their life, and the students getting passionate. And students are tired of seeing suicides. They're tired of it. And they see the problem so clear that it's allowed them to do things very clearly with the solution that a lot of us in this room could never do. And this is definitely not the thing I'm doing. I'm undergirding the students to do it. So what I want to do is show you 2 videos and let students share with you what it looks like to be unashamed. And these 2 students that you're going to hear from got a real broken heart for their community. It didn't come out of the head, it came out of the heart. And they are leaders. Andrew, who you'll see, he just, I think he starts school next week at Princeton University. Played on the basketball team. He was an amazing leader. Christina Chappell got a full ride to UNC Chapel Hill. They're leaders. We were hooked up with a couple leaders that said, we're going to change our school. And those 2 leaders became about 170. And this year our goal is to have 1,000 students involved in Whisper by October, to infiltrate every club and every athletic program at the school as soon as possible. So watch these videos and get a sense for what happened with Whisper.
Studio Forsyth is presented by the Cumming Forsyth County Chamber of Commerce and Forsyth County Schools. Welcome to Studio Forsyth. I'm Kelly Whitmire. Last night, the Whisper Movement, a 40-day campaign to build relationships in the community and in the school, kicked off at Lambert. Check it out.
So we like to say that Whisper, it's not a club and it's not an exclusive group of leaders, because Lambert has a ton of both of those. But it's more of a mindset that you're taking on, so that when you're walking into classrooms, when you're walking into Starbucks and other situations, you're not just concerned with yourself, you're on the lookout for other people. And being in a school like Lambert with over 3,300 students, it's so easy to walk through your entire day and go completely unseen. You know, relationships don't pass the surface anymore. And so there's a lot of hurt here at Lambert and across the country, especially with high schoolers, with people dealing with anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts. And I mean, it's written on the bathroom stalls. Like, you go into the bathroom sometimes and it's, I want to die and no one cares. And so there's a lot of people that necessarily don't have a voice right now and aren't ready or equipped to talk to everybody because they think that no one's going to be listening. So what we want to do here is we want to change the culture. We want to change the climate here at Lambert to build a community of people that, you know, are supporting each other, are encouraging each other, are respecting and appreciating each other. That is the whole point of Whisper. I'm talking about changing the climate, changing the culture, and I won't even be here next year. But the thing is, like, I have a younger sister who is a freshman, so she'll be here, and tons of underclassmen friends. And I just know, like, I'm involved and I'm a leader in several things here at Lambert, and I want to leave it better than where we came.
Why Whisper? That's a good question. The big reason for me, we have very shallow relationships. Like, how's your day? Good, that's it. Like, all conversations end with those 5 words. How's your day? Good. How are you doing? Good. I'm good. So, if we cultivate more better relationships, form deeper understanding of each other, which is what this is about pretty much. It's about knowing each other more, knowing people that you might not have talked to before, and engaging with them and like finding out what's their struggle, what they're doing, what's good with their day, what's bad with their day, how they're going through life. And through that, we can better cultivate a more inclusive and more supportive environment at Lambert.
We're hardwired to connect with people. And the flip side of that is, without caring connections, bad things happen. And so when you begin to find kind of bad things happening in a culture, in a population, whether that's anxiety or drugs or suicides or all kinds of things, we really need to what we call look upstream to what we can do about it. And so part of that is to kind of look upstream and say, let's work on the whisper, focus on relating to one another through these common values of respect and encouragement and all those kind of things. Relational values we will cover values like we all need respect, we all need encouragement, we all need acceptance, we need attention to be kind of noticed by one another, we need compassion, we need appreciation, we need support, we need the security of real safe relationships, and one called approval, someone to know me about my character.
That's it for today's show. From all of us here at Forsyth County News, have a great night, and we'll see you back Monday on Studio Forsyth.
Before he shows the next video, one thing I want to say is I think the greatest problem in America today isn't suicide. It's not racism. It's not jobs. It's not poverty. It's relational. And that's what causes all those other things sometimes, a lot of times. And I want to say that Dr. Gary Davison, the principal at Lambert High School, this happened because he decided he wants to see a change in his school. And he handed the keys to the students that you just heard from. So kudos to Gary for having the courage to say, I want to stand behind students. My door's open to you. We're texting all the time saying we've got to bring change to that school. And I think it took a lot of courage for him, and it's having a ripple effect that we can spread in a lot of places. I want you to see one more video, and then I'll introduce you to somebody else.
Hi, my name is Christina Chappell, and I'm a recent graduate from high school where I was able to be a part of a movement building it from the ground up called Whisper. Issues that are currently plaguing schools all across the country are students feeling isolated and alone. And with stress, pressure, anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, all climbing up the walls of our hallways, students have nowhere to go and no one to listen to them and what they have to say. And so Whisper is basically a movement to live differently and take on a new mindset where you're not just concerned with yourself, but you're on the lookout for other people. And we don't want it to stop just within the hallways of school. We want it to go and reach outside into our communities. When you're waiting in line at Starbucks for your latte, when you are checking out at TJ Maxx, not just being concerned with yourself, but having communication and conversations with the people around you. Genuine interactions. And so we wanted to challenge you and invite you to be a part of this movement to help change the climate of your school and your community through the power of conversation and connection.
And one of the heartbeats of Whisper as well is that it's not about a name, we call it Whisper. But we're about just doing things all over the campus that we don't even call it Whisper because we just want it to be grassroots. It can be underground. A lot of you have different things that you're involved in. That's great. We just want to support all those things and cooperate with those things and not be something else that competes with programs but tries to bless them and really live out the heart that Whisper is all about. So I know we're about to close here, but one of the new leaders is a guy named Luke Bullard here with me. He's the captain of the swim team. He's a really respected leader at Lambert. And I'm going to let him share a little bit about what he sees with Whisper, what his heart is this year as he wants to be a part of transforming his school.
Hi y'all, my name is Luke Bullard. I go to Lambert High School like he said. And Whisper came around last year in my junior year. And I saw it as a wonderful opportunity to really fix the problem that was going on in Lambert and I suppose other high schools as well. So I was a friend of Christina's. She was in one of my classes. I met her last year, actually, but she was just so open. And she talked to everyone. Like, every morning she came in, she was like, Luke, what'd you have for breakfast? And I was like, that's a weird question. But we became friends in, like, a couple days. And she just really made me feel like wanted and really that she was interested in having a connection. And in middle school, I was really bullied. I didn't want to talk to anyone, but and I really just, my mind went to some dark places. But finally, I moved to a different school in 8th grade, and people started talking to me, and I started talking to other people, and I really started to feel like, hey, like I'm not alone, like I can do this. And it was all because people were talking to me, and I started talking to other people too. And finally, my introverted middle school self became an extroverted, my extroverted self who I am today. And I started talking to other people. And then Whisper came around, and Christina and Andrew came around. It looked like the perfect opportunity to fix what a lot of people I'm sure are going through as well. Because I know bullying doesn't stop in high school. I just got fortunate and was able to avoid it through people talking to me. But I know there are people out there who need to connect to other people and who go through their day without talking to anyone. And Whisper is about ending that and talking and having conversations with those people who don't get to have conversations with others. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity. I think it can really change the climate of high school and even all of school in general, and just really help people who need someone to talk to, because that can change everything. Question?
How do you join it? It's actually not on the fund list of Lambert. I got 2 kids at Lambert. How do you join it? It's not, yeah, how do you join it?
So it's not really like a club or anything. We just wanted to, they're like an activity we want to be required. You can just come to the meetings. They're Tuesday nights at 6:15. Yeah, they start at 6:15 this year. And yeah, here's the website. I'll tell you about it.
So it's hearthewhisper.com, H-E-A-R, and our Instagram, which is where kids spend most of their lives, is whisper.us. So those are 2 ways. But hearthewhisper.com is our website. We're going to be revamping, adding more videos and stuff. But if you'll like the website, you'll see our relational needs rebranded and some cool videos, and you guys can use them, do whatever you want with anything we have. We're just here to serve you guys.
Just thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for caring and help us spread the word. I want to thank Sid Bramlett. He's here videoing. He's got a YouTube channel. Where will they find this?
I'll send it to you so you send it.
Okay, we'll put it out there. We'll get it out in the community, and everybody will be posting it. I tried to do FaceTime Live, so I hope that worked. But I try to get involved, and with our Mental Health Council, we will be meeting this month, I think it's the 24th, is it like 24th, on Monday at 8:30 at United Way. And so, and just, I don't know, I kept thinking when I was hearing the Whisper message, it's really just about loving each other.
Amen.
And just, and having patience with each other, and not having such huge expectations, and just being kind. And I think that this is a good beginning, and this is a good place to be the change. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you.